Hare Krishna, everyone. So we'll continue with the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. I'll just share my screen in a minute. Oops. So before actually I share my screen, I'm just getting to the place where Prabhu stopped yesterday. Okay. Let me search it here. Yeah. Okay. So Pyari Prabhu started discussing the introduction to the Gita. So what has happened so far in the introduction is that Srila Prabhupada started with the prayers first, and in the prayers he offers his obeisances to Guru, to Krishna himself, to Srimati Radharani, to the different Vaishnavas. And um, we see that Prabhupada makes a very important point. He says that the point of the Bhagavad Gita is that it is like a manual, it is like a prescription. And prescription in the sense, when we take a medicine, say suppose for example a person has diabetes, then there is a prescription given by the doctor. So the prescription means that, okay, you do this and you don't do this. So for a patient of diabetes, they tell him that, okay, this is your medicine, this is your insulin, you have to take this 2 times, 3 times or whatever, and then stay away from sugars. So that is exactly the prescription that is given to the patient. So, and the potency of the prescription is only when it is actually followed. Until you actually follow the prescription, there is no way you can understand what is the potency of that prescription. So here, Srila Prabhupada makes a very important point. He says that a prescription of the Bhagavad Gita is Bhakto si me sakha. He quotes that verse from the 4th chapter, 4.3. Sa evaya maya tedya yogaha proktah puratana bhakto si me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etaduttamam. So the point of Bhagavad Gita is that we have to become bhakta. We have to become a devotee of Krishna. That is the prescription of the Gita, actually. So then he actually, after coming to that point, he gives more details of bhakti. And when he's talking about bhakti, he talks about the 5 rasas. And he basically talks about that we are eternal, God is eternal, and we have an eternal relationship with God. And the point of Bhagavad Gita is to develop this eternal relationship. And this relationship develops in through the medium of these 5 rasas. So he quotes the 5 rasas, which we all know. Anyone would like to quickly mention what those 5 rasas are?
Shanta, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya.
Right. So these are the 5 rasas. And then he moves forward and talks about how Arjuna has also accepted Krishna as the supreme person. And then he himself, Srila Prabhupada himself, establishes the supreme position of Krishna. And then he says the whole point of that discussion is that unless one reads Gita in a submissive spirit, it is very difficult to understand the real essence of Bhagavad Gita, because it is like a great mystery. Bhagavad Gita is not easy to read. Many people, they read for a full lifetime, but they still cannot understand what is the real purpose for which Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Arjuna. So here the submissive spirit is basically the spirit of devotion. We have to approach Gita in a devotional, with a devotional spirit. Then after setting this mood, that he first offers prayers himself, and then he also tells the audience of the Bhagavad Gita to approach Gita in a submissive spirit. Then now he is going to talk about the purpose of Gita, for what exactly the Gita was spoken. So I think that is the point until which Pyari Prabhu had covered it yesterday. So before we get inside the further into the introduction of the Gita, so we see that today Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is has become the most widely distributed Bhagavad Gita throughout the world. I don't think any other Gita has been translated in so many different languages. And more than that, none of the other Gitas have transformed hearts of people as much as Prabhupada's Gita did. Prabhupada has made so many devotees throughout the world. It's even, it's very difficult to even comprehend how can one person create a revolution like what Srila Prabhupada did. So many, even the contemporary uh, people, they accept that what Srila Prabhupada did was, is something that, it is not humanly possible. It is like a superhuman task that Srila Prabhupada did. So we see that the Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita has become the most important works, not just within the Bhakti circus, but also within the intellectual academic world, in terms of the Gita scholarship. So in the, can everybody else go on mute, please? I hear some echo. There is some disturbance coming. Okay, yeah, I think now it's good. So we see right itself Bhagavad Gita as it is. There's so many universities have actually accepted this Bhagavad Gita as it is as part of their academic, uh, courses. So many of this Bhagavad Gita as it is actually followed in many different universities throughout America and throughout the world also. In different universities, even in Australia, I've heard that they have accepted Bhagavad Gita as it is now. So, and not just that, Srila Prabhupada's Gita represents our vast tradition. In our Sampradaya, Gita is considered one of the most important scriptures. It is actually a broad Vedic book. It does talk about Krishna's supremacy, but it also talks about other paths. But it also talks about the other paths, and because it talks about the other paths also, it is like an integrated presentation which concludes ultimately in the supremacy of bhakti. And anyone would like to comment quickly, how does it conclude in the supremacy of bhakti? Where exactly does Bhagavad Gita concludes in the supremacy of bhakti?
18th chapter.
Yeah, what's the verse?
Sarva dharman parityajya.
Actually, before that, no, Sardhan Parite, definitely that is there. That is the concluding verse. But before that, Krishna actually establishes the context. So he says in it, so it Sardharman Paritejya is the 1866. But before that, in 1864, he says Sarva
Manman.
Guhyatamam Bhuyaha Shinu me Paramam Vachaha Ishto Sima Dridhamiti Tato Vakshyami Te Hitam. He says this is my supreme instruction and I'm speaking this to you for your benefit. He says Sarva Guhyatam. This is the most confidential of all the things that I have spoken. And this is Shanume Paramam Vacha. This is my supreme instruction for you, Arjuna. So this is very important verse that comes in 1864. It cannot be neglected actually. And then he says, Ishto Sima Dridhamiti. I am determined to love you, Arjuna. And therefore, for your benefit, I am speaking this to you. Man manabhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evashyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. So he says, Man mana bhav mad bhakto. It become my devotee, offer obeisance. So the key was Man mana bhav mad bhakto. Bhakto, become my devotee. And then he says, Tardharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tuam sarva papebhya moksheshyami ma shuchaha. So the point is that it is not a passive surrender that we have to do to Krishna. He says it very clearly that this surrender is through the process of bhakti. You become a devotee in that mood you surrender to me, not in a way that enemy has to surrender to the other opponent also. But that is more like a reluctant admission of defeat where we are just overpowered and we don't have any chance to, do anything. And if we do anything, we'll be killed. So not in that sense, Krishna is asking us to surrender. He is asking us to surrender in loving devotional service. It's very, very important for us to understand. So here, this is like one of the concluding verses that Krishna speaks, and after this, actually, the Falashruti starts. So essentially, Krishna's instructions end with the establishing the supremacy of bhakti, my supreme instruction. So then, uh, if we see, we are talking about our tradition, our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So in our tradition, we see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself quoted from Bhagavad Gita at several times. We see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes from Bhagavad Gita. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. And when he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, that shows the importance of the book. Krishna has given other instructions also elsewhere, but when he is himself quoting from his own instructions, that shows the importance. And then we see that Jiva Goswami, who is our Siddhanta Acharya, he also quotes from Bhagavad Gita at several times in the Sandarbhas. Sandarbhas are very important work in one sense. They are not ordinary actually. So when we say Jiva Goswami is our Siddhantacharya, anybody would like to mention how exactly is he our Siddhantacharya? What did he do by which he is known, through which he is known as a Siddhantacharya? Okay, so quickly, excuse me. So our Siddhanta is Achintya Bheda Bhed. So we see that this principle of Achintya Bheda Bhed is established very, the foundations of this principle is established very strongly by Jiva Goswami in his Sandarbhas. And even the coinage of this term, Achintya Bheda Bhed, this is coined by Jiva Goswami. It is not coined by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did give the philosophy, and this philosophy was actually established. The philosophical establishing of this philosophy was done primarily by Jiva Goswami, but by other acharyas also, by other Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they also did prominent work. But most prominently, Jiva Goswami has done a lot of work to establish that philosophy. Now, having understood that, we see that in our Sampradaya, there are multiple commentaries that were written for the Bhagavad Gita. So anyone knows what was the first commentary written in our Sampradaya for Bhagavad Gita? Who wrote the first commentary?
By Baldev Vidyabhushan.
That's not the right answer, but you are very close. Okay, so the first commentary on Bhagavad Gita in our Sampradaya was written by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he called it as Sararth Varshini. So he wrote two commentaries, Sararth Varshini and Sararth Darshini. Sararth Varshini is his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and Sararth Darshini is on Bhagavatam. So Sararth, Sar Arth, that is the essential meaning, and Varshini means showers. So that is the essential meaning. And before him, of course, I was talking more in terms of the Gaudiya tradition, but before him, we see Madhvacharya. So our tradition comes from Madhvacharya, but it is more like a branch of the Madhva. It's called the Brahma Madhav Gaudiya Sampradaya. So, I'm sorry, did someone say something?
So, Prabhuji, Srila Prabhupada, our Bhagavad Gita as it is, that is based on Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentary, is it right?
Yeah, I'll come to that, Prabhu. That is what you are saying is right.
Okay.
I'll come to that. I'm sorry, what was I saying? Okay. Anyway. Yeah. So I was talking about how there are other acharyas also. Madhvacharya has written a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, but before Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya has written. Of course, Ramanujacharya is not in our Sampradaya, but Prabhupada quotes from Ramanujacharya. So most prominently 2.13. If you see the commentary that is given by Srila Prabhupada is most primarily taken from Ramanujacharya's points that he makes in his commentary. And of course, before Ramanujacharya, Shankaracharya had written a commentary. And before Shankaracharya also had several acharyas have written commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. So, but talking about our Sampradaya, after Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baldev Vidyabhushan also wrote a commentary on Gita. So like Madhavkanta Prabhu was just mentioning. So Prabhupada writes at one place that if the spiritual master has written a commentary on a specific, Vedic book, then his disciple doesn't write the commentary on that book unless it serves a specific purpose. So we see that Bhakti Siddhanta wrote a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, but Prabhupada also wrote a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita. But we see Prabhupada draws most of his commentary from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary, but he also integrates it with his own insights, and then he gives specific instructions to ISKCON devotees for how should they be their interactions with the Gaudiya Math and the other Gaudiya devotees. So that was also one of the purposes that Prabhupada wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita. And of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita is one of the most important works in our tradition. It is one of our distinct scriptures. And we see that the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bhed is most prominently given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is quoted by I'm sorry, missing the name of the Acharya. Anyway, so that is quoted most prominently in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we were talking about Baldev Vidyabhushan. So now Jiva Mata, so coming to Madhavkanta Prabhu's point. So Jiva Mataji explained in one of her Sri Ishopanishad classes that Baldev Vidyabhushan was challenged by Ramanandis to establish the authenticity of our sampradaya. Now every sampradaya, for it to be considered an authorized sampradaya in the traditional Vedic culture, it has to have its own commentaries on Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya. So these are called the Prasthanatraya. So three foundations of the Vedic literature: Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya as Prasthanatraya. The purpose of this is to show how the essential Siddhanta of the Sampradaya is in line with all the three classes of the scriptures: Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya. Now, among the Shrutis, Baldev Vidyabhushan commented on the Upanishads. He commented on several Upanishads. Within the Smriti, he commented on Bhagavad Gita. And within Nyaya, he commented on Vedanta Sutra. So in that way, in his time, he established within the intellectual circles the credibility, the respectability, and the authenticity of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So anyone knows what is the Madhavkanta Prabhu would know probably. What is the name of the commentary written by Baldev Vidyabhushan?
The commentary, I know the name, so it's Govind Bhashya. The commentary, what are you asking?
Commentary on Gita written by Baldev Vidyabhushan. What is the name of that commentary?
Okay, that I'm not sure. I thought you're talking about the commentary that he wrote on the Bhagavatam.
Okay, so you mentioned the Govinda Bhashya. It is not actually a commentary on Bhagavatam. Baldev Vidyabhushan did not write a commentary on Bhagavatam. That is the commentary that he wrote on
Vedanta Sutra, right? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
To me,
Vedanta
Vedanta
Sutra.
Vyasadev's commentary on, so it's like, in my
Right.
head, it's like Bhagavatam, yeah.
Yeah. So his commentary on Bhagavad Gita is known as Gita Bhushan. And his commentary on Vedanta Sutra is known as Govinda Bhashya. So Prabhupada quotes that in the dedication of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So now his commentary, if we see Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary, is quite different from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary in many ways. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary is more rasic in nature. And Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary focuses more on the tattva. So Baldev Vidyabhushan's purpose was to establish solidly the philosophical foundations for our sampradaya. So that was the purpose, because he has been challenged by the Ramanandis. Jiva Mataji gave a lot of details that day. I really was amazed. A lot of so many details Mataji gave. I don't know where did she get it from, but it was very, very elaborately she explained that day. Now, Bhakti Vinod, we were talking about our sampradaya. Bhakti Vinod Thakur wrote very brief commentaries. He translated the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baldev Vidyabhushan. And what he did is he added his own notes at several places. So like that, he wrote two books. One is called the Vidvat Ranjan and the other is called Rasik Ranjan. So Vidvat Ranjan is based on the Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary. So Vidvat means wise and Ranjan means to delight. So it means the the delight of the wise people. What would the wise people delight in? Wisdom. So Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary contains a lot of wisdom. So and that's where our Acharya Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he names the book as Vidvat Ranjan. And then Rasik Ranjan is based on the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Rasik are those who are relishers, who have that aesthetic taste. When sometimes we see that there is some arbit, in my language, some arbit painting, some random painting, and people are so nicely watching. It's such a nice painting, and I could make no sense, why people are so amazed by this painting. There's some random colors people have thrown. There is a name for such paintings, but they have some aesthetic taste, which obviously I don't have, and I'm not able to appreciate that. So Rasik means one who has a very developed aesthetic taste. So it is like a Rasik Ranjan means those who delight in rasa, mellow. That is what rasa means. And then, of course, Prabhupada wrote his commentary. And as Madhavkanta Prabhu just mentioned, Prabhupada draws a lot from the commentary of Baldev Vidyabhushan. He dedicates his commentary on, if we see Bhagavad Gita as it is, there is a dedication right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. He says this, I am dedicating this to Baldev Vidyabhushan, who wrote very nicely, and he doesn't quote Gita Bhushan over there, who wrote very nicely. Govind Bhashya, his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. That's what Srila Prabhupada writes over there. And we know that Prabhupada's commentary is more meant for the modern mind. Mostly he was presenting to the Western audiences because he was preaching in the West. But it is to basically convert the minds of people who have some kind of modern thinking. They don't have so much uh, appreciation for God per se. So now, having understood that, let's start again from where we left yesterday. Excuse me.
You can.
Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I think we have to start from here. Is that correct? Okay, all right. Yeah, I think so. So just what is the Bhagavad Gita? The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from the nescience of material existence. Every man is in difficulty in so many ways. As Arjuna also was in difficulty in having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna surrendered unto Sri Krishna, and subsequently this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Not only Arjuna, but every one of us is full of anxieties because of this material existence. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. It's very important. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. Actually, we are not meant to be threatened by non-existence. Our existence is eternal, but somehow or other we are put into asat. Asat refers to that which does not exist. So what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? It is basically, the purpose is to deliver us from the clutches of Maya, from the clutches of material existence. So that is the purpose. And Srila Prabhupada also, if you see in the preface, it's a very nice statement that Srila Prabhupada makes. This is the preface of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Here Prabhupada says that even if just one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. So Prabhupada actually had spoken towards the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, the beginning of the introduction, that there are many different commentaries on Bhagavad Gita available, but they don't touch the real spirit of the Gita. The real spirit of the Gita is basically how it is to take us beyond this material world, take us back to the spiritual world, our eternal home, back to Godhead, back home, back to Godhead. Sometimes people don't understand what is this back to Godhead means. So that actually means that this is not our real home. Our real home is our spiritual home, which is Krishna's place, Krishna's abode. And Prabhupada is saying that even if one person becomes a pure devotee, so what happens when he becomes, he can go back to the spiritual world if he becomes a pure devotee. And Prabhupada is saying that, so his purpose, Prabhupada's purpose is not to not to be recognized as a great acharya, or not to be recognized as a scholar on Bhagavad Gita. His purpose is to deliver the fallen souls from the clutches of Maya, from the clutches of the material existence, and send them back to the spiritual. And that's why he's saying that just even one person becomes like that, our mission will be successful. Just to deliver, we sometimes, when we have to deliver the books, we have to distribute books, sometimes I think, so there are only 25 people there, why should I go and waste my time for 25 people? But Prabhupada is writing that just one person, if he becomes a pure devotee, our mission will be successful. So now, what is the purpose of Gita? Actually, we see that Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita that right when the creation started, he had given this knowledge. So Krishna knows that this is an unnatural state for us. So Prabhupada writes in the introduction here in this paragraph that our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. What is meant by non-existence? We do exist here, but this is temporary. Everything in the material world is temporary. what is that in the 8th chapter? What do we call it? Anitya Sukham Lokam, that is the 9th chapter. So this is Anitya, means this is temporary, and Asukham, there is no Sukha over here. So this is an atmosphere of non-existence. It is non-existing because it is not permanent. It is temporary. The whole life goes like a flash. I have passed so many years of my life, and it doesn't even realize that how so many years of my life have passed. So Krishna says right in the beginning of the 4th chapter, imam vivasvate yogam proktavahanam aham avyayam vivaswan manave praha manurikshava ke bravit, that I had given this knowledge to the sun god, and from sun god it came to Vivaswan, from Vivaswan it came to Manu, from Manu to Ikshvaku, and like that this knowledge has been passing down. So what is Krishna knows that this place is an unnatural place for us, and to deliver us from this place, Krishna has given the knowledge in the beginning itself. But what had happened was, evam parampara praptam imam rajarishyo viduhu. So this knowledge had come down in parampara through the Rajarishis, in the imam rajarishyo viduhu. But sa kalina mahata, because of the impact of time, yogo nashtaha parantapa, this knowledge has been destroyed because of the effect of time. Now, in one way, we can say that time is Krishna himself. Krishna himself says that in the 11th chapter. Kalosmi lokakshay krit pravriddha. Time, I am the destroyer of the 3 worlds. So if Krishna himself is time, and he is saying himself here that due to the impact of time, this knowledge has been lost. So actually, in one sense, it is Krishna's own will. So when sometimes he makes this knowledge manifest, sometimes he makes this knowledge unmanifest. But for whatever the case may be, so he says that this knowledge was lost. And in 4.3 he says sa evayam maya tedya yogaha proktaha puratanaham, that same knowledge, that puratanaha, that old ancient knowledge that had existence from the beginning of the time, that was existing from the beginning of the time, I am giving this to you, O Arjuna. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etad tamam. Prabhupada had quoted this verse right in the starting of the introduction, that I am giving this knowledge to you because you are my friend and you are a devotee. So that is like a qualification to receive this knowledge. And then he glorifies this knowledge in one sense. Rahasyam hi etad uttamam. This is a secret knowledge, but it can, if you know this knowledge, it can take you beyond the nescience. Nescience is the material existence actually. So now, if we really understand what is exactly the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, now, to say the least, what I have understood so far is, it basically tells who am I, what is my real identity. So we know that we are not the bodies, we are the soul. We are spiritual entities, we are not material beings. But somehow or the other, we are identifying ourselves with this material body. So how do I realize my true identity? So that is one thing, that is the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. How exactly do I realize? I may just intellectually understand that I am not this body, I am the soul, but still I work for the body. Every day, every night, I'm just trying to make this body comfortable. So how do I exactly recognize my true spiritual identity? And so when I understand that I am not material, I'm a spiritual entity. So who is the supreme spiritual entity? So that is also a subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. God is the supreme spiritual entity. And when we understand that, okay, God is the supreme spiritual identity, supreme spiritual entity, and I am also a spiritual entity. So what exactly is my relationship with God? So our relationship with God is, so Aham Brahmasmi, we say that, okay, my true identity is Aham Brahmasmi. But that is like our identity in isolation. That doesn't convey the full import, full essence of our identity. So the essence of our identity is Jivara Saruphoy Krishner Nityadas. So our true identity is that we are the eternal servants of God. We are the servitors of God. So that is actually our true identity. And that may not be directly established by Gita, although Krishna does say that you have to do like this, but it is directly established by so many other scriptures. So the other thing is, okay, so why am I here then? If that is the case, then why exactly am I here? And where do I exactly belong to? So when Prabhupada says that we have to go back to Godhead, So back to Godhead means when sometime we were already there, but somehow or the other we have come here and we have to go back over there. So that is the whole idea. So how do I go back over there? That is also one of the subject matters of Bhagavad Gita. So, and then the other things is what exactly is suffering, so in the 13th chapter, Krishna establishes Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. That is the real sufferings of this world. And then why am I suffering? So that is also given in the Bhagavad Gita 13.22 or 23. That is one of the most important verses of the Gita. And then if I am suffering here, so what exactly is true happiness? Sometimes I do feel happiness, but that happiness is temporary. So what is the true happiness? Where do I get permanent happiness? And how do I attain that true happiness? There has to be a process for attaining that, right? Besides that, it also talks about death and reincarnation. So reincarnation is, coming again and again and again. Actually, not coming again and again. It is more like dying again and again. When this place is called as the abode of death, Mrityu Lok. It's the abode of death. So the idea is not just that, the death comes here. The death comes again and again and again here. So a person takes birth in the sense that he acquires a material body and then the material body perishes. Like that. So that is why it is called reincarnation. So it is basically the process of dying again and again and again. Although we may sometimes call it as taking birth again and again, but it is more appropriate to call dying again and again. Besides that, it also it tells us very clearly what exactly is karma and how does the karma bind us in this material world, and how do we actually get free from the binding of karma. So that also is talked about in the Bhagavad Gita. Then it talks very clearly about the definition of time. What is time? So Krishna talks most prominently at two different places. One is he says, Kalosmi lokakshe krit pravriddha. Time, I am the destroyer of the world. And another place he says that, I think the 10th chapter, he says that time, I am the controller. So time controls and time destroys. So both are the characteristics of time. And then we see that for the very first time in the fourth chapter, Krishna does talk about, returning back to Godhead. 4.9, he says that, if you really understand the nature of my appearance and my karma, you will not take birth again. That is what Krishna had said. But if we don't take birth again, then where do we exactly go? So that he didn't talk about that in the fourth chapter. In the 8th chapter, he clearly talks about that there is another world. So it gives knowledge about another world which is permanent. So in the 8th chapter, very elaborately Krishna speaks. At least he takes about 3 to 4 words. He describes that in 3 to 4 verses. And then it talks about how to go beyond. When we go to that world, we actually go beyond the cycle of birth and death. And then the other thing is, we see that, out of everything that we do, we seek two things. One is that we either want to get some happiness out of it. There is everything that we do in our life, we do that thing to get some happiness out of it. There is nothing that we don't say that, okay, I'm just bored of getting happy now, let me do something to get misery. We don't say like that. That is because the very nature of the soul is Sat, Chit and Ananda, bliss. It is always seeking bliss. So, and the other thing is the soul wants to love and it wants to be loved. That is the innermost hankering of the soul. So many things people do so that they want to become lovable in the eyes of others. So, okay, if I want to be loved and I want to love, what is the ultimate object of my love? So that information is also given in the Gita. And then what are the different processes for attaining that ultimate object of love? Then it also talks about dharma. So we say that sometimes it is said that actually the defining question of the Bhagavad Gita itself is, what is my dharma? That is the question that Arjuna asked. Dharma sammoda chetaha. I don't know what my dharma is, Krishna. Please tell me what my dharma is. That is how the instruction starts. So it is also called as dharma shastra sometimes. So what is dharma? That is what is. But Krishna says in the end that Sar dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam raja. So it basically tells us that the ultimate dharma is to surrender to Krishna. So we see that Bhagavad Gita ends at Sar dharman parityajya. Give up all dharma and surrender to me. And Bhagavatam actually interestingly starts from there, that the supreme dharma of the living entity is to surrender to the Supreme Lord. That is how Bhagavatam starts. And it ends with, chanting the holy names of the Lord. That's how the Srimad Bhagavatam starts. So, and then finally Bhagavad Gita talks about the different kinds of dharma and what is the highest dharma. That the highest dharma is to basically surrender to Krishna. So this is more or less the purpose of the Gita, and we see that Prabhupada also writing his commentary in line with what is the purpose of Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So any other commentary which does not touch on these subject matters, which does not convey the purpose properly, that has to be rejected. So we see that there have been so many commentaries written on Bhagavad Gita. So thousands and thousands of commentaries on the Gita. In one sense, it is like a tribute to the vast message of the Gita. Actually, if you see, people from different walks of life have written commentaries on the Gita. We have, we see that many freedom fighters had written commentaries on the Gita. Many politicians have written commentaries on the Gita. Many business people have written commentaries on the Gita. Sometimes the spiritualist may write on the commentary on the Gita because it is like a spiritual book. But we may wonder, why would politicians and these freedom fighters and these business people, why would they write commentaries on the Gita? So the point is that Bhagavad Gita, although it consists of just 700 verses, it covers a lot of scope. Krishna talks about a vast variety of topics in the Bhagavad Gita. So a lot of things are covered in the Gita. And the other thing is, because the respectability of Bhagavad Gita is so much, sometimes people who want to convey their own message, they use Bhagavad Gita as the medium. So they superimpose their own philosophy on the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. And their idea is that people are more likely to accept their message that they have superimposed on top of the message of the Gita if they present it through Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita has a lot of respectability. So that is in one, although these commentaries are like a tribute to the message of the Gita, but we have to be careful that not most of these commentaries are not touching the real spirit of the Gita. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. So we have to find out what is our purpose of reading the Gita. Some people write business sutras, learning business sutras from Gita. So is our purpose really understanding the business sutras? If that is our purpose, then Bhagavad Gita as it is not meant for us. It is for some other, we have to read some other Gita in that case. But if our purpose is to transcend, if our purpose is to transform our heart, then we should read Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because that is what Srila Prabhupada has done through Bhagavad Gita. So I'll just take a quick break and see if there are any questions or comments or corrections about what I have spoken, and then I'll continue reading the introduction. Any comments, questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So Prabhuji, a comment, not a question. So I think in one of the your class, there was a point that uh, the Bhagavad Gita itself is more focusing on tattva philosophy as compared to melos, and I was just connecting that point to say Srila Prabhupada chose Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentary as a base instead of Rasika Ranjan, and I thought if we connect this point together, probably Srila Prabhupada first want to establish the tattva very clearly, because in Western audience, it's because he's taking this message to the Western world. So I believe Srila Prabhupada really wanted to first establish the tattva very clearly instead of Rasik melos first. So this is what my understanding is, Prabhuji. So please.
No, yeah,
validate.
what you said is right, because he is preaching to the Western audiences and he wants to establish the principles of the Vedic knowledge, and that is where he gives this Bhagavad Gita as it is, because in the Bhagavad Gita we see Krishna very clearly establishes all the principles of the Vedic knowledge. It is said that Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. So everything that is there in the Vedas, it is presented in a very succinct way in the Bhagavad Gita. And as you rightly said, because Baldev Vidya Bhushan writes, basically he very solidly, um, establishes the foundations of our principle through his commentary. Prabhupada also uses that as the base, but as I said, Prabhupada also quotes from several other acharyas, even from other different sampradayas. Also, he quotes from Ramadacharya most prominently. He quotes from different acharyas actually. If you see, he also quotes Arjuna Acharya, I think, in one of his purports. So, and the other thing is, Rasik Ranjan is not like a full-fledged commentary. I would call it more like a tika. Tika is more like, it is like a commentary on a commentary, you know. So it is like he basically writes some notes over there while converting these commentaries. So
Thank you, Prabhuji.
any other questions, comments, corrections? Okay, if not, then I'll start reading again. Share my screen. Okay. Out of so many human beings who are suffering, there are a few who are actually inquiring about their position, as to what they are, why they are put into this awkward position, and so on. Unless one is awakened to this position of questioning his suffering, unless he realizes that he doesn't want suffering, but rather wants to make a solution to all suffering, then one is not to be considered a perfect human being. Humanity begins when this sort of inquiry is awakened in one's mind. In the Brahma Sutra, this inquiry is called Brahma Jigyasa, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Every activity of the human being is to be considered a failure unless he inquires about the nature of the absolute. Therefore, those who begin to question why they are suffering or where they came from and where they shall go after death are proper students for understanding Bhagavad Gita. The sincere student should also have a firm respect for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a student was Arjuna. So Prabhupada is again establishing that who should actually read Bhagavad Gita? What is the purpose? Sometimes people come, as I mentioned, there are different purposes. So these freedom fighters, as I was talking about, now I'm not going to name because people get offended sometimes. They have some soft corners for the freedom fighters, but they one of the freedom fighters, for example, he writes in his commentary that if India would have followed the Bhagavad Gita, then there would not have been any partition, and we would have, even if there was a partition, we wouldn't have lost Kashmir. So now Bhagavad Gita is not meant for, losing Kashmir or losing some piece of land or, anything like that. But that is how they interpret Bhagavad Gita. Now, another freedom fighter, he says that actually the whole context of Bhagavad Gita is metaphorical. There was no war actually that had happened, because sometimes people get a little ashamed that why should a scripture which is spoken by God should talk about war? Why should it talk about violence? So they get a little ashamed because of this. So they say that it is all metaphorical. It is all happening within the heart. Within our heart we have like a good side and a bad side. So they say that the Pandavas represent our virtues, our good side, and the Kauravas represent our vices, our bad side. And our intelligence is, guided by the Paramatma. If we take the guidance of Paramatma, then the virtuous side will win. But if we don't take the guidance of Paramatma, then the bad side would win. So that is how they interpret it. But then if you say that this actually Mahabharata did not happen and this is all metaphorical, then it basically the whole Gita becomes redundant. And why would some person would want to read this if this becomes all imaginary then? So then it basically defeats the whole purpose of reading the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada says that actually, in the Brahma Sutra, this inquiry is called as Brahma Jigyasa, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. So in the Mahabharata, there is a verse comes that says, Dharma Vihina Pashu Samana. If there is no difference between an animal and human being unless there is dharma. The human being can understand what is dharma, but the animal does not understand what is dharma. So actually, one of the very primary dharma is to inquire about the spiritual truth. What is the ultimate truth? That is one of our dharmas. Lord Krishna descends specifically to reestablish the real purpose of life. When man forgets that purpose, Even then, out of many human beings who awaken, there may be one who actually enters the spirit of understanding his position. And from this, Bhagavad Gita is spoken. So here Prabhupada is quoting Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaya Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Vaiti Tattvataha. So this is 7.2 or 7.3, where Krishna says that out of many thousands of men, actually one endeavors to understand the spiritual truth. Basically, he wants to. I think someone has to go on mute. There is some disturbance coming. Okay. So in that verse, Krishna says that out of many thousands of men, one would actually endeavor to develop spiritual, and out of those who are endeavoring, only one would understand me tattvataha, in truth. Actually, we are all swallowed by the tigress of nescience, but the Lord is very merciful upon living entities, especially human beings. To this end, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, making his friend Arjuna his student. Being an associate of Lord Krishna, Arjuna was above all ignorance. But Arjuna was put into ignorance on the battlefield of Kurukshetra just to question Lord Krishna about the problems of life, so that the Lord could explain them for the benefit of future generations of human beings and chalk out the plan of life. Then man could act accordingly and perfect the mission of human life. Actually, many acharyas had said this, that Arjuna was a wise person. So how could he become forgetful? How could he come into this kind of ignorance? So it is understood that it is Krishna's internal potency who actually had brought Arjuna under illusion, where he forgets his real purpose, and then he basically starts lamenting. Then he says that I don't want to fight. I don't know, why should I fight this war? It was basically so much bloodshed over here. What is the real purpose? I don't want to fight this war, because Krishna wanted to give this message. So Krishna knows that now Kali Yuga is about to start, and Kali Yuga is like it is like a time of spectacular spiritual ignorance. It is like a spiritual calamity where people have forgotten their true identity. We see around us today in Kali Yuga is so much nonsense going on. People have doing so many nonsense things. So these drugs are so easily accessible. Even in India nowadays, one of my cousin fell into drugs. I was so devastated by hearing that news. We used to play together, we used to do so many things. Now he got into these habits of drugs, and then his whole life is spoiled. He has a wife, he has kids. I know how it is going to be. So Kali Yuga is actually such a very fearful time, and Krishna had known that this is going to start. So he for the benefit of all people, he actually brings Arjuna under illusion through his internal potency. And the purpose was that he wanted to give this knowledge for the benefit of the people in general. Arjuna was actually a very intimate associate of Krishna. And we see in Bhagavatam several places when Krishna kills a demon, that demon immediately attains liberation. So there was no question of Arjuna not attaining liberation. No matter what Arjuna would have done, because he was so intimately related with Krishna, he would have definitely attained liberation. It was not even a question for Arjuna. So what Krishna is doing is, through Arjuna, making Arjuna as the medium, he is giving that knowledge for our benefit. Loka hitam rinam. That is how it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita itself. For the purpose of other people. That is what Krishna says to Arjuna also. The subject of the Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. First of all, the science of God is explained, and then the constitutional position of the living entities, jivas. There is Ishvara, which means the controller, and there are jivas, the living entities which are controlled. If a living entity says that he is not controlled, but that he is free, then he is insane. The living being is controlled in every respect, at least in this conditioned life. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matter deals with the Ishvara, the supreme controller, and the Jivas, the controlled living entities, Prakriti, material nature and time, the duration of existence of the whole universe or the manifestation of material nature, and karma, activity, are also discussed. The cosmic manifestation is full of different activities. All living activities are all living entities are engaged in different activities. From Bhagavad Gita, we must learn what God is, what the living entities are, what Prakriti is, what the cosmic manifestation is, how it is controlled by time, and what the activities of the living entities are. So there are 5 subject matters that are very clearly discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. So jivas are the souls, us, and we are the souls. Then we have Ishvara, so, and then after that we have Prakriti. So Ishvara is the controller and Prakriti is the material nature. It becomes the mechanism through which the jivas can operate in the material world, the Prakriti though. So our body is made up of Prakriti. So if we don't have that body, so body is like an interface between the jivas and the material world. But the body itself is also made up of the material energy itself. And then we have time, kal. And then we have the karma. So out of this, we know that there are 3 entities which are eternal. We have actually, yeah. So the 3 entities that are eternal are Jiva, Ishvara, and Prakriti. And time is not eternal. We know that it just exists in the material world. And then we know that karma is also not eternal. Activities are not eternal. The the consequences of karma can be negated by surrendering to Krishna. If we don't surrender to Krishna, then that cycle of karma will continue and we'll have to come back again and again and again. So now we know that in 13.22 it is established very clearly that Purushaha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya gun sad asad yoni janmasu. So Purusha Prakriti Stohi. So Purusha there is refers to the soul. It gets embedded in the material nature. Prakriti Stohi. Bhunkte Prakriti. Why? Because he has the desire to enjoy Prakriti. He wants to enjoy the material nature. Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gudan. Jan Gudan means the material energy consists of the gunas, the 3 modes of material nature. And Karanam Guna Sangosya. Because of the association of the gunas, of the 3 modes of material nature, Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. Sometimes the living entity is born in a good actually everything in the material world is not it is inauspicious, but it is from a relative perspective. Sad asad yoni, some yonis are considered good, some yonis are considered bad. So sad asad yoni janmasu, so he takes birth in different kinds of good or bad yonis in different species of life. So this verse actually explains these things. It explains jiva, prakriti, karma, and time also. And the next verse, it talks about Ishvara. So there in the 13.23, Ishvara is described as the controller. What is that verse? Upadrashta Anumantacha Bhokta Bharta Maheshwara. He is the Upadrashta means overseer, Anumanta means permitter, and Bhokta means he actually maintains. Bharta, Bhokta, Bharta, and Parmeshwara. He is the supreme Lord actually. So that is how it is described in the 13th chapter itself. So this actually this portion of where Srila Prabhupada talks about that Bhagavad Gita talks about 5 principal subject matters: Jiva, Ishvara, Prakriti, Kal, and Karma. This is taken from Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary on Bhagavad Gita, from Gita Bhushan actually. Well, Baldev Vidyabhushan stresses on this point in his commentary of Gita. Okay, so I'll stop here. We only have 4 minutes remaining. I just want to see if there are any comments or questions or corrections about what I have said today.
Prabhuji, can you repeat what is eternal and not? Because I was spacing out for a little while.
What is eternal?
And what is not? You said 3 things are eternal, 3 things.
Karma is
Jiva.
not, karma is not eternal. Ishvara, Prakriti, Jiva.
Ishwar, Jiva, and Prakriti are
Kala is
eternal. Right. And Kal and Karma are not eternal.
So Kala is not
Kal is
time
eternal.
should be eternal, right? No.
Kal is eternal.
So actually, Kal is not eternal because I tell you why. It is explained that once after the dissolution, the final dissolution that happens when everything merges into the body of Mahavishnu. So time actually operates within, when the material world is created, when it is manifest, then time is also manifest. But when the material world is not is unmanifest, at that time is also unmanifest. In the spiritual world, now, so we have to understand this, that it is said that in the spiritual world there is no time, but we see from the uh, from the uh, commentaries or from the books of acharyas that there is clearly time, because they explain that during daytime Krishna is Krishna does this, during night time Krishna does this in the spiritual world. So if there is no time, then how is this daytime and nighttime happening over there? So the point is that the time has two characteristics that is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Time is the controller and time is the destroyer. So these two are the defining characteristics of time, which are absent in the material world. In the spiritual world, time does not control and time does not destroy, but time does exist over there. But when the material world is dissolved, when the material world is unmanifest, clearly there is no need for any time over there, because time starts when the manifestation of material world starts. That is how acharyas have explained, Mataji. This is not
But
what
it
I
is
am telling.
eternal in the sense that it's cyclic. It always comes into existence.
Yeah,
In that
with the
sense,
material world, but material
with
world
the
itself
material
is
world.
but material world itself is not permanent, right? It is temporary, because we know Prakriti is permanent. Because Krishna is eternal and all his energies are also eternal, and Prakriti or material energy is one of the energies of Krishna. But material world is manifest and unmanifest. So in that sense, material world is not permanent, and
But in
it is.
Prabhupada's commentary, what does he say? I thought he said it's those four are eternal and karma is the only one that's not eternal. What does he say in his commentary?
Here in the introduction, he doesn't talk about that, Mataji.
Doesn't talk about it? Oh,
I
okay.
think in introduction he says that only 4 are eternal and 1 is not eternal.
Yeah, I thought I remember that.
Yeah.
I've read the introduction several times and I thought I remembered that.
Okay, let me search, Mataji. But again, what
Yeah, you don't have.
I have understood is that the
And Krishna
material
also says
energy
that,
is
right?
eternal.
Krishna says, I am the
Krishna
time.
says
Right?
that material energy is eternal, but he doesn't say that. So time, I am the destroyer of the. So he says that the destructive characteristic of time is Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if that is the case, then I apologize if you think I'm.
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Prabhu,
what I mean.
I read that in the spiritual world, time is there, but time is only there for Leela. So it's the Ashtakaliya Leela that happens all the time. That you're talking about, different parts of the day and everything. But everybody remains the same age. In other words,
Yeah, actually, Prabhupada
nobody
is.
ages. There is no death, there is no aging process. Whatever age you are, you're at that permanently at that age. Like Krishna's grandfather, is always his grandfather. He might have white hair, but he's not growing any older. It's kind of strange for us to comprehend, but whatever age you are, you're kind of locked in time on that age. So there's no aging process. So I don't know.
Yeah, he says that time is eternal. Actually, he says material nature itself is constituted by 3 qualities. He says there is eternal time, and by a combination of these modes of nature under the control and purview of eternal time, there are activities which are called karma. Yeah, he does say that. So I apologize, but my understanding is that what is eternal is the material energy, and when the material world is manifest, then time also gets manifested. But when the material world is unmanifest, that is, I don't remember where I read
Right. I
that,
was
but
also
anyway.
surprised to see that Kala is eternal, but he does say it's eternal, and I understood it as in the sense that it's cyclical, like
Okay.
the 4 yugas keep coming over and over and over again. So in that sense, Kala is eternal,
Yeah, sure. Mataji.
Prabhu,
Okay.
if just
Yeah, go
one
ahead, Prabhu.
thing, if we go with your thought process that the time is not eternal, the same way, Prakriti should also not be eternal, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It comes and it
Prakriti,
goes away.
yeah, Prakriti in the sense that the material energy is, because Krishna is eternal, all his energies are also eternal. So Prakriti is the material energy, and it is eternal in one sense. There is directly a verse in the, I think, 16th chapter, which starts 16.2, I believe, where it says.
But I agree with Damodar Swarup, just like Kala gets into when it is inert, so does Prakriti becomes inert when it's
No, Prakriti
taken.
exists at that time in the form of Mahatattva. So Mahatattva always exists. So God doesn't create out of nothing.
Oh, I see.
So Mahatattva exists, and by the glance of Mahavishnu, the Mahatattva gets agitated.
But
and
you're
from
saying
there,
time is not happening at that time. You're saying.
right, time is, because there is no need for time after once everything is destroyed. There is no need for time. So in that sense, I was saying, but it's okay. Yeah, I understand what Srila Prabhupada is also saying here. And I also read it in one of the other commentaries, Mataji. I don't remember which commentary. So that's where I was saying, but that's okay. I apologize that I should be sticking to what Srila Prabhupada is saying here in his commentary.
And also, we don't seem to understand so easily that, like that you said the whole purpose of the Gita is to understand our real position and get out of the three modes of material nature and go back to Godhead. I mean, is it the deep conditioning that doesn't allow us to understand that so easily? That we're separate from these bodies?
Right, that is the whole idea. And as I was talking about 13.22, that because the living entity wants to enjoy the material nature, bhunkte prakriti jan gunan, we want to enjoy the material nature. But why do we want to enjoy material nature? It is explained in the Gaudiya literature. It is said Krishna bhuliya ji bhogavan
Which
kare.
chapter is that? Bhunkte Prakriti Jangana?
13.22, Mataji.
13.22.
So it is mentioned that Krishna bhuliya ji bhogavan kare nikataya maya tare jhapatiya dhare. So basically, as long as we are with Krishna, we are getting enjoyment at the spiritual level. And because soul always want enjoyment, because the very nature of the soul is to enjoy bliss. Sat Chit Anand. Anand is the characteristic of soul. So as long as we are with Krishna, we are getting enjoyment at the spiritual level. But when we forget Krishna, we don't get that enjoyment. So we try to seek that enjoyment elsewhere. And that's where we try to enjoy the material nature. And when we try to enjoy material nature, although material nature in one sense is dead, but when we try to enjoy material nature, then jhapatiya dhare, it basically catches us, and then we are trapped. And then because of the association of the modes, we get controlled by the modes after that. So
But
then
it's
we need a
very,
process.
yeah, I know, but it's very hard to extricate ourselves from that, our
Right.
circumstance. You know what I'm saying? Our material.
Exactly.
And even I heard you read that Prabhupada said we should not get even involved with what's happening in society. In fact, I'm reading the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, one verse I just read yesterday. And it says that we should not even get involved with the societal disturbances. Meaning to say, like, for example, Nazi Germany, you know what I'm saying? It was such a horrific event, so we have so many, like bad rulers in society, throughout history, bloody times. But so Prabhupada was saying that you should not get even involved in those kind of circumstances. We should be completely, completely extricated from those external circumstances. And it's very, very hard to do that,
Very
not
true,
to see
Mataji.
the ills of society, like, not to, speak against Nazi Germany or speak against anything that's going, you think is not quite right in society. It's a very hard, line to walk on.
Yeah, there is this, I forgot, there's a social commentator. He says that what is news? News is, he says basically there is nothing new in the news. It is old thing happening to new people. All these things have already happened. Somebody have died, some earthquake had come, somebody might have killed someone. It's just everything is old, but it is happening to new people, and that becomes news. So, but we get so much caught up in that. We get agitated by that. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why is this war being fought? Why are these guys doing like this? And then we get
Yeah,
caught.
and somebody is like a big man one day, and next minute he's gone and he's a nobody.
Right.
In fact, the first question Srila Prabhupada asked Ambarish Das when he first started to join, he found out that he was the grandson of Henry Ford, and he says, "Where is he now?" is the first question he asked him. So all these big people, small people, crazy people, bloody people, everybody, everything is impermanent.
Right.
But it's very, very hard to extricate yourself from it, though. That's what I'm trying to comprehend.
That's very true, Mataji. It's very hard to get out of the clutches of the Maya, you know.
Mhm. And
So Krishna is,
understand you are not this body that you're in.
yeah. Devi hi Isha Gunamai Mama Maya Duratya.
I
So it's
know.
very difficult to get out.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Hare
think
Krishna, Prabhuji.
yes, Prabhuji.
So, Prabhuji, while reading introduction, I think you read like this material world is unnatural. So, unnatural means we should take it as a temporary, right, Prabhuji?
What I read was our existence is within the domain of non-existence, right? That's what you mean, right? Not unnatural.
Yeah, but I think there
Oh,
was
yeah.
a word like unnatural
Right,
too.
right. Yeah, basically because we are spiritual entities, you know, we are in an unnatural environment, because if you see by nature, the matter and spirit are opposites. You know, matter is eternal, matter is not eternal, spirit is eternal. Matter can be destroyed, spirit cannot be destroyed. You know, matter can be cut into pieces, spirit cannot be cut into pieces. If you really see, these are two opposites. There's so many differences between matter and spirit. But we are spiritual beings and we are in material world, so it is like an unnatural, you know, atmosphere for us. And in that sense we are so Prabhupada gives the analogy of fish out of water, you know, because the natural habitat of fish is water. But if you take the fish out of the water and you try to give fish, you know, all the comforts of the world, give it a sofa, TV, a nice bungalow, car, but the fish will, you know, for some time it will, you know, what is it, it will suffer for some time and then finally it will die. So that is our case. We are, no matter what we get here, we are not satisfied. We are always suffering. We are always hankering for something or the other, and ultimately after hankering and lamentation, ultimately we die. And then we again acquire another body, again we hanker and lament and we die. So in that sense it is like a unnatural state.
I know. In
Yeah,
fact,
okay, Prabhuji.
what's his name? Prahlad Maharaj says his greatest fear is coming back to this material world and not even seeing the ghor roop of Narsinga Bhagwan. You know? That doesn't make him frightened. It's more frightened of Maya, you know, coming back to this material world.
Yeah, actually Prahlad Maharaj says a lot of frightening things. What is that? Punah punah charvati
Charvita charvanam.
charanam, chewing the chewed. All we are doing is chewing the chewed. A lot
And
of
we don't
frightening
even
things.
recognize it. Yeah. Amazing, huh?
Exactly. All right, I think we are 10 minutes over. Let's stop here and we can
Thank
continue
you.
again. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya
So
kripa
this
sindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki jai.